What is the funniest thing you got in trouble for doing in school? I got a detention for starting a food fight when I slid an empty chip bag across the table to a friend of mine. In hindsight, I should have responded by actually starting a food fight. If I was already convicted for the crime, I might as well have committed it," said the rapist. In high school we had a multicultural week and each day they had someone make the morning announcements in a different language. Well, I spoke Swedish, and other than an exchange student I knew I was the only one. My announcement had something to do with belly dancing at lunch, so my friend dared me to say that I'd frick the crap out of her, in Swedish, of course. Well, it turns out that one of the teachers was Norwegian, extremely close languages. In 9th grade my principal was writing out forms for a detention for me. Her pen died so I gave her my shock pen. Needless to say I got more hard time. What a smart butt thing to do. In kindergarten my friend dared me to call the teacher Mrs. Banana when she called the roll. I got sent to the kindergarten version of detention called the castle where I had to draw what happened. That is all I actually remember from that time in school, and it still makes me laugh. My school used a software called Deep Freeze, but it was easy to get around because the IT guy was a slow typer. It was pretty universally hated. So what did I do? Changed the startup sound on the Windows 2000 systems to the sound of a woman moaning loudly, followed by a goat's call. Oh, yes, 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 bah. Then I cranked the volume up on the systems. I finally changed the password and locked the systems back down, all remotely. They eventually just removed the speakers from the library computers. In my junior of high school, my friends and I were busted cooking bacon on a George Foreman grill in an unlocked dressing room in the arts hallway. Everyone was supposed to be at a pep assembly and so we figured we could get away with it. It turns out the delicious smell of bacon travels quite far. There was this awful lunch lady that would just power trip all over us poor freshmen whenever she got the chance. Cell phones were allowed, but you couldn't use them during school hours unless it was an emergency. So this lunch lady lived for that brief moment when she'd spot a phone from across the cafeteria and rush over to admonish the student for being such a criminal. Anyway, my friend was caught looking at his phone during lunch. His sister had been sent to the hospital, and his parents were letting him know what happened. This was emergency use, totally fine as far as we knew, but the lunch lady ran over and started screaming at him. She took his phone, made a scene, sent him to the principal. A little later in the period, I pulled out my calculator and started making calls on it. I made sure I was being really loud, making big obnoxious gestures, being all theatrical about it. The lunch lady stormed over and started shouting, "No phones. No phones." I made a big fake frowny face and started looking from her to my calculator and back again, waiting for her to catch on. After a few seconds, the lunch lady completely flipped out. She grabbed my calculator out of my hand, marched me down to the office and made me wait while she went to see the vice principal. After a few minutes she left in a huff without saying anything to me. The vice principal came out puzzled and handed me my calculator. She told me she didn't understand the problem. TLDR. Got mad cause I was talking on my calculator. I have a couple friends with diabetes who have insulin pumps. In class, someone's phone would ring and they would answer their pump to cover for the other student. I said Hannibal was a good example of leadership during my 9th grade English class. That didn't go over well and everybody that I was some crazy sicko. I was talking about the Carthaginian general that attacked Rome. All everybody else in the class heard was it puts the lotion on the skin. I also got detention in the 6th grade because someone said I put something in someone's locker. The principal didn't let me speak at all and just issued the sentence, "That mother sucker, I'm P now." I forgot all about that crap. I was blindsided because I did no such thing. Clearly the other students in your class didn't know much, as it puts the lotion on the skin isn't even the right character from Silence of the Lambs. In the late 90s there was a shock segment on the local news about how gang members use 3 circles dots to denote some gang affiliation or something in tags. I remember seeing this on the news and thinking it was pretty dumb. Less than a week later one of the high school counselors pulled me in and wanted to know why I had gang symbols in my name and made a big stink about it. At first I was confused. gang symbols in my name. Then I remembered the stupid local news story and realized what the stupid B was talking about. The letter I appears 3 times in my full name, so there were 3 dot circles above my name. I got in trouble for the way my name is spelled. Evidently when I was little, around the 5th or 6th grade, I had led the kids to the gym for pay, but I decided we needed more recess time, so I took them to the playground instead. I think it's safe to say good times were had. You Mosesed it. When I was in 4th grade, the high school choir came to our building for a nice sing-along concert of sorts. In our building was grades 4-6, so I was still very intimidated by the older kids all around. So I filed into the cafetorium, sat with my friends in my class, and was having a good old time singing some carols. And surprisingly, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer came up. Being in 4th grade, we were all about the special version with the additions between lines. So, of course, after Santa came to say, my friend and I yelled out, in his underwear. Apparently, that is an abomination. The director stopped the song and refused to go any further until he was given an apology. My teacher and the principal, gasp, picked out my friend and I as the sole offenders regardless of the countless others partaking in our version. We were then forced to go in front of the whole school, apologize multiple times for our transgressions against all that is joyous, and leave the concert. I was mortified all day because they had called home. When I got home, my mother just laughed at me. Whoa, so they completely humiliated you because of that. Rank. In the 6th grade, I was not allowed to attend that year's music day field trip. I had farted in music class one too many times. I stayed home and played Diablo 2 all day. We were in a computer lab and the teacher had to use the bathroom, so she had a teacher in an adjacent lab watch over our room. The second teacher came in and basically said if anyone leaves you will get detention, and then went back into her class and continued teaching. I walked over to the door and opened it and shut it and then went back to my seat and sat down. The teacher came over and absolutely flipped out trying to figure out who left. Finally, after a few minutes of hilarity, I came clean and ended up with a few lunch detentions. Worth it. I walked out of ceramics class and found a spare motorized wheelchair just sitting in the hall. I drove it up and down the hall a couple times with my black hood on, acting like a handicapped Darth Vader saying, "Wook, I am Yalf Order." Apparently there was security cameras in that hall. I had a day of in-school suspension and the principal called my mom. All she did was laugh. You definitely live up to your name. My little brother printed out a picture of his middle school's principal and taped it to the back of a urinal in the boys' bathroom. The teachers found out when they saw a line of boys stretched all the way down the hall waiting for their turn to pee on the principal's face. My parents were pee that he got suspended, but I've never been more proud of him. Hehehe, pee. I thought it would be a great idea if I didn't need to take bathroom breaks in 1st grade. I would just crap my pants, and then have a spare pair in my backpack, do a quick swap in the back of the room, and then just wash them when I got home. It was foolproof. That plan lasted all of one time. Not even all of the one time, more like halfway. This is not my story, but I heard it from the perpetrators. They had a sub for their English class, so the girl spent the better part of a half hour telling the sub about her fake pregnancy, and then another student ran up, screamed $5 abortion and stage punched her in the stomach. The sub freaked out. Falcon punch. We were left unattended in theology class a lot for some reason. Theology class was on the 2nd floor of the high school building, which overlooked the parking lot, and across from that, the elementary school. So one day I directed my friend to give me his shoe, and then I told him to go outside and lie face down on the grass directly under the classroom window. Try to look as sprawling as possible. Then I opened the window, and holding his shoe, I started screaming. I had to apologize for disrupting classes, and I had to apologize to a couple of elementary school teachers for nearly rupturing their hearts when they thought a student had fallen from the window, but got in surprisingly little trouble aside from that, most likely because it was the least my class was known for doing. You were left unattended because God was watching you, silly. The dean of students at the time threatened to have me expelled and arrested for spitting in a trash can. A school-wide walkout was held in her honor and she left at the end of the year. Go figure. I don't even. Why? Not me, but a guy in the grade ahead of me was such a frickass that the teachers would never let him go to the bathroom cause he would always frick around in the hall, so twice, he shat his pants in class to show the teachers what dongs they were. This was in 7th grade. Like a boss. I got my diploma withheld for walking across the stage with a stuck-up demeanor and saying thank you into the microphone during the graduation ceremony. I then again got in trouble for acting mentally retarded when they wanted to scold me for doing what I had done. This is why you never go full retard. As a homeschooler, pretty much anything I did at home could count. But I do fondly remember one occasion in middle school where I woke up early and surprised my parents by cleaning the bathrooms in the house to perfection before starting my schoolwork, and was grounded for 2 weeks because I threw away my dad's moldy, bristleless toothbrush. I remember being interrupted while doing my math homework to my dad jumping up and down screaming like a banshee. In that moment I lost all respect for my parentals and my years of rebellion were set into sail. Your dad sucks. In kindergarten I used to get in trouble for reading the directions on a worksheet and completing the worksheet according to the directions. In our school reading wasn't formally taught until the 1st grade, so my kindergarten teacher firmly believed that kindergartners shouldn't be able to read. Sorry, my mother taught me to read when I was 3. I also got in trouble for playing cars and building blocks with the boys during playtime. Girls were supposed to play house and play with dolls, and boys were supposed to play with cars and building blocks, and never the twain shall meet. Frick everything about those teachers. It didn't happen to me but my friend Curtis. At my school there was a noise that a large portion of the student body would make to annoy the teachers called the noise. A noise was performed by yelling the word "at" while grabbing your vocal cords and shaking them to produce just about the most obnoxious noise this planet has ever known. After a semester of the "at" noise being in existence, it became a detentionable offense to make said noise while at the school. With this knowledge the story may begin. During 8th period, the last period of the day, my friend Curtis was in Algebra 2 honors with a lovable teacher that was in good spirits, and everyone would do everything in their power to distract him during lecture as a sport. During class, our teacher turned to face the whiteboard and write out some equations, and the "at" noise went off by someone I cannot remember. He turned around snapping, "Who made that noise? Don't make that noise. Don't even think about making that noise." And Curtis looked to the back of his eyes and leaned back, clearly thinking about making the "at" noise. Our teacher, seeing this, said, "Curtis, detention for thinking about making the "at" noise." Curtis and most of the class burst out laughing, asking for the actual note, claiming that he got detention for thinking about making the "at" noise. You realize what you must now do? Post a YouTube tutorial. When I was in 7th grade I was completely done with my assignment in a computer class, and there was only one student who was still working on the assignment. The rest of the class was already logged out of their computers and waiting for the bell to ring. I quick logged back into my computer and sent 500 blank sheets of paper to the printer and then logged out. The only student who was visibly logged in of course got blamed, and an outburst occurred until I couldn't handle it anymore and finally admitted to it and got a day of in-school suspension. I call shenanigans. There is no school computer in existence that can log in less than 3 minutes. In kindergarten, I accidentally splashed my shirt with water while washing my hands in the ladies' room. So when I got back to my desk, I took my shirt off. I watched too much TV when I was little. I believed that if you screamed into a container and put your hand over the top of it, you could hold the scream in. I wanted to do this to my friend and scare him. I screamed into my thermos, put my hand over it, and put it up to his ear. Little did I think that there was still milk inside. I gave my friend a nice milk bath. I never told anyone why I did it because I didn't want my parents to take away my Scooby-Doo. During freshman year my friends and I came up with a system of throwing away our trash at lunch. Instead of each of us throwing away our own trash, we'd pile it all up in the middle of our table, then spin a bottle twice at the end of lunch. Whichever 2 people it landed on would then have a best 2 out of 3 rock, paper, scissors match to determine who would throw all the trash out. Naturally, we would make the pile as messy as possible to really punish the loser of the contest. Eventually the school staff noticed what was happening and called in the vice principal, who then scolded us for being messy and literally said we were the scum of the school. The thing that was most frustrating though, was the fact that we actually took the cleaning up part seriously and he wouldn't listen when we pointed out that every day our table was completely spotless when we left. Luckily, the lunch ladies finally did realize that we would clean our table better than anyone else and ended up letting us play our game for the next 3 years as long as we never left the table dirty. I'm still pee at being called scum though. Holy crap. I did the exact same thing in 8th grade. Senior year I was the control room operator of our daily TV show they did during homeroom. Well, I found this ridiculously funny Mexican rap CD and decided it would be funny to play the music as a lead into commercials. Well, at the end of the show the guy forgot to turn off the music and it played for a solid 10 minutes. Turns out there was a ton of swearing that the Spanish teacher recognized and she called the principal. Got called into the office and screamed at. After the principal was done yelling, I had the nerve to ask if he could give me my CD back that he confiscated. Well, it was your CD. You had every right to ask for it back. I secretly put a piece of chalk and an eraser in my 5th grade class. Most of the class laughed when the teacher tried to erase something on the chalkboard. Got sent to the principal office for it. Later that night, my parents even received a phone call. My friend left his Facebook up on one of the computers which it wasn't blocked. My other friend and I decided to have some fun and basically made him look as gay as possible. We changed his sports, likes, movies, and made a man with short shorts as his profile picture. It was hilarious. Like 2 days later, I get called into the principal's office with the other girl and he starts grilling me about this, saying it was bullying and blah blah. So he calls the owner of the Facebook in, and the guy basically says, they weren't bullying me and I know they were joking. We're friends. But the principal still is angry about it. I was so upset because I'm basically a good kid, never in trouble. But then he asked, did you change his sports to ribbon dancing, and I just cracked up. Long story short, 3 days ISS. Didn't get to go to homecoming, but it was hilarious. Not me but a friend of mine from high school. He and a group of guys decided to head out at 3rd period to smoke one day. Our high school wasn't an open campus and could be tricky to get in and out because there were only 2 entrances, with security at both doors. In order to get in and out without stopping at security, you had to have someone on the inside. Suffice to say, my HS was big on keeping students in the school, and unknowingly big on encouraging Shawshank-style breakouts to smoke weed. Anyway, one of his buddies suggested that the group go to said buddy's car to smoke because it was parked pretty close and was an SUV. There were like 7 of them smoking, and after about 15 minutes, a car rolls up behind the car they were hotboxing, and who steps out of the car? None other than the car owner's mother, coming to pick up her car. The dude forgot that his mom was coming to pick up the car. Read. A common side effect of marijuana use is short-term memory loss, and she clearly flipped her crap when she saw the scene in front of her and the billows of smoke exiting her car. She was intent on giving the principal their names, and because these were all friend of her son, she knew everyone's names. Everyone except for my friend. When she asked him his name, he cleverly told her Tim Johnson. At the time, we were ready to kill a mockingbird and Tim Johnson happens to be the rabid dog that Atticus Finch shoots. Brilliant high idea. She has no reason to believe this is a lie, so she proceeds to go to the principal and turn them all in. My buddy was sure he was in the clear because it had been a couple of hours and he hadn't been called to the office. But then it happened, and he got it a lot worse than the others. Turns out, there was only one junior named Tim Johnson that year, and it also turns out that he was a special education student and had been pulled out of his class and was grilled for taking part in baking out the car. My high school was about 1,700 kids, so my buddy had no idea that there was a real Tim Johnson. Needless to say, they ended up figuring it out some way, and my buddy got the book thrown at him. Once the dust settled, his parents put him in boarding school a couple states over to finish high school. TLDR. Buddy got busted for smoking out a car, gave the mother a fake name and mistakenly gave the name of a special education student. Administration did not find it ironically funny. I feel bad for the special needs kid, but that's hilarious. This will be buried, but when I was in 5th grade I was a bit chubby, especially my legs. The seats at our lunch tables were very close together and hard for me to fit through when sitting down getting up. When I was standing up to throw my tray away, my chubby leg got caught between the seats and I fell backwards, spilling food all over my plate. I squealed like a bee, and the teacher runs over and sentences me to a week of detention. She thought it was a cry for attention. My mind was full of frick. Your username sums up my thoughts upon reading this quite precisely. My first and only detention was for jumping off the swings at recess, bestowed upon me by the playground lady that was sleeping with my married teacher. 2 summers ago my oldest son was trying to set the world record high jump off the swings and broke both of his arms. The teacher meant well. I printed up a bunch of flyers that said tulips, windmills, and a reduced crime rate, things that plague a nation that decriminalizes marijuana, and hung them all around the school. The art teacher was upset by this and gave me a referral, which sent me to the office. The vice principal was amused by the situation and just said don't hang flyers without my permission and sent me back to class. Since I didn't get in trouble and was now annoyed by the art teacher for taking down all my flyers, before I went back to class I laminated the referral and made a necklace out of it. The art teacher, upset by my lack of a punishment and even more upset by my new jewelry, gave me another referral, this time for insubordination, and sent me back to the office. This time the VP just let me stay there until lunch. He had candy on his desk and I got out of a day's work with no real repercussions. A friend handed me a condom on a school bus on the way to middle school and dared me to blow it up. I blew it up rather large and everyone on the bus was laughing hard as they could. I then threw the condom out the window and it landed on the lower part of the windshield of the car driving behind us and stuck to the windshield wiper. It was all everyone could talk about at school that day. Since I was in the 7th grade, I was asked what I was doing with a condom. Freaking me day and night, obviously. My Spanish teacher in high school was pregnant for 3 out of the 4 school years. Junior year we were making pinitas for our last couple weeks of class. When asked what my friends and I were doing for our groups, we jokingly replied that we were making a small-bodied replica of one of us with a giant head. Our friend does have a generous melon. Our Spanish teacher laughed and approved the idea. He was not amused. We instead made a pinata of her. We reversed the body proportions. The head, arms, and legs were now tiny while the belly was large and filled with confetti and a troll doll. The presentation day and the ceremonious popping landed us in detention. When turning in our detention slips, the principal laughed, commenting that at least there was confetti. I refused to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. No one gave a crap before 9/11. After 9/11, however, patriotism was rampant. So every day that I didn't stand, I got a referral. I got in school suspension, out of school suspension, and eventually expelled. I guess it's not really funny as much as a freaking seriously kind of thing. In 4th grade I found a Playboy magazine in a house that was under construction. I cut out pictures and took them to school. I was caught selling them in the cafeteria bathroom during lunch. Punishment: the principal sent me home with an envelope containing one of the naked lady pictures for my parents to sign. Parents' response: my father wrote a note back to the school that his wife didn't sign autographed pictures. Your dad is awesome. My friend got suspended for 2 days because he wrote I masturbate as an answer to a question in a test he was taking in German class because he didn't know any German at that point. The question was Matchst du in deiner Freizeit? Not me, but 3 friends of mine streaked across the field at our high school's playoff game. They got arrested and a 5-day suspension, but the school loved it. And he was aroused by it. It's my sister's story. When her friends would get up from the cafeteria table to get more food, she would drop a tampon in their water glasses. They expanded epically. One day the wrong teacher saw her do it. She got detention. I really hope she saved that slip. Once in the 2nd grade I sat behind a boy who I had a crush on. I don't know why, but I cut a small piece of his hair with my scissors. The teacher saw me do it. She said, "What kind of malarkey is this?" I had to stay in from recess and she wrote a note to my mom, who also thought it was a bunch of malarkey and grounded me for a week. No more shenanigans for me after that. I was on the straight and narrow. I only used my scissors for cutting colored paper and manila paper. I got my comeuppance alright. My friends and I broke into our desktop publishing classroom. We picked the lock and played Minesweeper like a boss. This guy is gangsta right here. One time I stood too close to a door and was sent inside. Another time I kicked a ball too high and was sent inside. Another time I was playing lightning wrong at recess and was sent inside. Another time we realized how ridiculous this was getting, so we did bicycle kicks and sure enough, inside. Gotta say though, my favorite was ghosting a teacher. That was kind of stupid on my part, but hey, we were bored and it was funny at the time. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.